Good afternoon. Welcome to this walkthrough of Manjunath Kamath's solo exhibition, Shakekthu Salpaka. This exhibition comes 5 years after his last exhibition at Gallery Espace and includes a number of very large works, sculptures in terracotta and paintings in canvas and a few
Drawings.
works in drawings as well. Speaking with him today is Dr. Shobha Talengala. She is an art historian and her thesis has looked at the material culture of coastal Karnataka and Kerala. Yes.
So, I would firstly want to congratulate you on a fantastic, atmospheric and extraordinary work. I think it's spectacular in the scale. It goes to a very large size and then it comes down to a very small space. It is blank and it is filled. So it is so many things at the same time. But let's start with the title of your exhibition.
Thank you for your comments. And the title I'm going to start with this title of this show, which is Shakekthu Salpaka. And when you see this script, which looks like kind of like someone, always the reaction of people, like it's maybe Sanskrit, or it maybe looks like Bengali or Bali, Pali or whatever. But in reality, it's like very fictional, which I have created all this text. It looks like something, but it's not.
Okay.
And at the same time, Shakekthu Salpaka, that is also kind of gibberish.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
You know?
A whimsical play on scripts.
Yeah, that is like even in my work.
Right.
So all images which looks like something and it belongs to a certain era and you are constantly finding that it belongs to where and bounce back like it's the era elsewhere. That era doesn't exist at all. It's all fictional.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I think it is a wonderful way to start your title because, like you said, it goes from something that is familiar and we can look at it and feel that it is something that we have seen, yet it is like nothing we have
At the same time, it's like playing with the sound and form.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like always I remember if you repeat certain names like Ravi, then it seems like something else. It comes out from the meaning. And another thing, when we talk about like a kind of sound of particular name, and always we comment like that sound of name doesn't go with your face. Somewhere like we see it very soundly and visually.
Right.
The combination of both. So somewhere I'm very much interested about it. At the same time, how I arrived into working with text and playing with the form of text. So I always very fascinated about the image of script. Like for example, like certain script, if I don't understand, but somehow I react to the form of it. You know, so it's very interesting to like the form which works. And as a metaphor, when almost a year back, I was planning to work with akar nirakar, like form and formless. You know, so somewhere I wanted to go away from the making object rather than like abstract.
Right.
The first question came into me is like, what is form and what is formless?
Right.
When you go away from formless, there are also a form.
Yes.
So for example, in Islam or Sikhism, in a temple, in Sikhism, the temple, they worship book, Guru Granth Sahib. And treating that book as a humanly, like they are shamaning and offering flower, offering naivedyam, which means you are treating that as a deity, and somewhere you are in your mind you are creating a human form into it. You are narrating it as treating it as a human.
Right.
Similarly, even in Islam, we are talking about formless. At the same time, the text become form.
Yes.
And in larger perspective, what I say is like it's they don't do form worship. You are not doing a form worship, but at the same time, the masjid is a kind of form, and they are going inside and doing this. The only thing is like they are not worshipping a form, but going inside the form.
Right.
You know, there. I mean, for example, the great example is even in Goa,
Right.
and how the formless become form is another very interesting thing. Like I was reading about a Nirakar temple in Goa. There is one pillar. So in the Garbhagudi of the temple, there is only one pillar, which is talking about Nirakar, Akarless God.
Yes.
But instead, because of that pillar, how they have somewhere they got that hole into a Akar is like they are covered with Narasimha face, because the pillar is
Yeah, the god Narasimha.
God Narasimha. So again it's become a Nirakar, become a Akar. So somewhere like wherever if you want to go away from Akar, you have to arrive in Nirakar. Or Nirakar, when you search for Nirakar, you arrive on Akar.
So the constant engagement, the oscillation between form and formless.
Yes.
And so I think that is a very nice way of engaging with your works. And I think one of the ways, like what you just said about the words and text and form and all of that, I think is encapsulated in this.
Yeah, like technically if I say it's painted on a cloth,
Right.
and it's on cotton, like it's a layered of color, and then I applied gold leaf on it. Then again I treated with layers of color. And the whole idea is like, my idea is like it should looks like a kind of manuscript.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's something, and I again, like it's a kind of fictional text which I have created here. It looks like something, but it's not.
Yes.
And similarly, where I was talking about only text and formless, but within that formless, again I have created images which you easily react to it. Like you go through with some images, and then from a distance it looks like another kind of large, and there's a text, and this looks like an illustration of it.
Yeah, an illustrated manuscript.
Yeah, manuscript.
Which there is a very rich tradition of illustrated
illuminated manuscripts.
Illuminated and illustrated manuscripts.
And it looks like Buddhist text, Jainist text, and everything, but end up there is nothing. You know?
Yes. It looks like many things.
Many things, but nothing.
But it's cannot.
So that's the idea. Like my whole how I created this whole show. It's like when I was planning for a show. Like first, I was very clear about the ambience and the space, which I wanted these curves.
Right.
And I wanted to respond to that curves, like a kind of very museum kind of, and the whole idea is taking you to a kind of era which is not exist.
Right.
You know.
So you are engaging with the space and creating or responding to this space, to the scale of this space, to monumental space
and the time again.
And the time.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think space, when we talk about space, this sculpture which looks extraordinary and amazing, and looks almost monumental.
Yeah.
And reminds us of many things
Yeah,
that are familiar, but it's completely unfamiliar.
Yeah, that is my idea. Like, whoever enter into it is the kind of like questioning all eras, and somewhere like open their mind folder, and reading my work.
Right.
Because it's always like whatever we see, whatever we taste, always with the kind of previous memory.
Right.
We are somewhere telling it, and okay, this is it, and again we decided not this, maybe this. So that all the layers of questions comes when you see something. And this particular work, which is like a long back when I visited Met Museum, especially that Buddhist show was going on. There's a large sculpture. The presence of it, like I was thinking about, like I want to create certain kind of large image, which you have to stand in front of that and you have to forget yourself.
Right.
You know, that kind of image I wanted. Very abstractly I started this sculpture.
Right.
Like when I started this sculpture, I had only one thing in my mind was like, I want to have that kind of image in front of you.
Right.
And you are looking at it, at the same time it's looking at you.
Okay.
You know, that kind of conversation should begin.
Yeah.
And normally in terracotta, I use this terracotta sculpture as a drawing. There is no preliminary sketches for any sculpture.
Right.
I start with lump of clay and then only I decide what is that. And always while I build the terracotta, it gives me a kind of everyday surprise, you know, how it's going. Even I don't know.
Okay.
So somewhere it's allow that to build.
Your imagination to flourish.
Yeah. And while I build, I recall all these influences of different iconographies.
Right.
And somewhere like what we call how we
Layer it.
like how we stitches the braiding.
Right. The braiding of
Braiding. Yeah.
Right.
Similarly, like I'm braiding all cultural elements, like all iconographies, like. So it's merged with each other. It doesn't looks like this part is something and that part is something.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the better part of my work is like it's not piece by piece, and it's not like ready-made object which I got and joining together.
Yeah.
Even while I'm building it,
Yeah.
I am not very particular about this part is Chinese or this part is Persian. So it's a kind of a mix, a
Right.
mixture of, to get that, you have to have the knowledge of that iconography.
Right. So it's a melding of
Yeah, yes,
iconography.
exactly.
What have you
And,
named this? What is the title?
Title of this work is Bikaner Narva.
Bikaner.
Yeah, again it's a kind of fictional name.
Yes.
And simultaneously I create a story with the image, like in
Right.
particular for this sculpture,
Yeah.
which is like he was a king who conquered a nation,
Right.
another nation, and after a long time when he been to that place where he had a war,
Right.
and he listened certain whispers.
Okay.
And when we see like there were like small plants or trees with the bunch of human heads instead of fruit.
Right.
So when he goes closer,
Yeah.
those heads were telling us stories,
Right.
and those were like victims of who died in that war.
Or, right.
So he just plucked some branches of tree and carries away, and every day those heads are telling him a story.
Right.
But in reality, maybe it's guilt. It's
Right.
not in real, but that guilt is playing.
The guilt is speaking to them.
Speaking to him.
Right. And there are so many details in this work.
Yeah,
For instance,
again, if you find in my all works,
yeah.
I always try to play with the details.
Right.
Like, each part should be interactive. When you see here, those two animals he is standing on,
Right.
this animal doesn't have exact kind of identity.
Right.
It looks like something, but even in our
Hybrid forms.
Yeah, hybrid forms.
Yeah.
Like
this makara,
makara,
that we have in India.
yeah. So similarly, and those both are like one going in this direction, another is in that direction. And again, it's a kind of stability you are talking about, and kind of so if these two animals goes away, like there's a fear of falling.
Right. Even
The
the scale.
uncertainty. There are
Yes.
layers of so many meanings and narration.
In this sculpted form, that you can see many breaks
Yeah.
where you have put them together,
Yes.
assembled, melded, all of that.
Yeah.
So when you bring it into a space like this, are they created separately?
Yeah, it's
Like-
in 7 parts.
Okay.
And one more thing I wanted to tell you, when initially when I wanted to do a terracotta sculpture, large sculpture,
Right.
the first technical problem was like baking of this sculpture in one piece.
Right. It
Because
can't-
the kiln is the problem. Like how
Yeah.
do you
How do you do that? Yeah.
So I was looking for all kind of solutions. And the best part was like when I visited one museum where I found broken terracotta form which is joined together and certain part was missing in between. Then I thought this is the way, this is the quality of terracotta. Breaking is the quality of terracotta. It's the nature of terracotta.
It's fragile.
Yeah, fragile at the same time it's permanent. And we come to know about history because of terracottas.
Exactly.
So, and at the same time that missing pieces is a metaphor for fiction in the history.
Where we interpret what we want to say and insert.
This part is available, this part is available. In between thing is
it's blank.
Your thought, like what it may be, could be, that kind of. So somewhere I'm asking viewers to become a historian in my work. They are building a story on it. They are placing that empty part from their mind. Like they are imagining, their imagination comes alive here.
So the artwork is inviting us to use our own imagination.
Everyone, my idea is like everyone is a thinker.
Everyone is a historian. And
Yeah.
one of the things I did feel in my conversation is that when we enter this space, it feels like you're going into the sanctum sanctorum.
Yeah, it's exactly. So as I told you, like initially when I decided to have this exhibition here, particularly this space, which I liked very much. Like when you come into it, you and this sculpture here.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of place, a kind of garbhagudi, or it's like space made for this sculpture.
Yeah. It's personal.
Yeah, very personal conversation you have. At the same, initially I told you that when I wanted to do a large work, it should be like the conversation between eyes. That is looking at you and you are looking at it.
Yeah. Or in Indic culture and in religion, we have this idea of the darshan.
Yeah.
We are looking at the form of the deity, and the deity is looking back at us.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it builds on that in a very powerful way. And I love the fact that even the back of this wonderful sculpture is so detailed, so intricate. You can see the folds, you can see the plaque that we are talking about.
Yeah.
We can see the empty spaces, the cracks, the empty
like
spaces.
it's a filled place.
Yes.
And here again like the broken branches.
Right. So there is terracotta, there is color, it's ceramic, it is it's just an completely imaginative amalgamation which, like you said, forces us to think about or encourages encourages us to put ourselves into this space and think about what might be missing, what is this,
what could be this,
So I think, as you have said in your in the beginning of the exhibition, clay as history or history as
I treat history as a clay, molding with that, creating something.
I think this is a perfect example of that. And even this form, which
so this is again like a kind of like it's very very known image to us, like in our where I came from, the Bangalore region, like we have a vahanas to each god. Even in temple for a festival they use vahanas, like even in for a Shiva temple they Nandi vahana, or Vishnu have a Garuda vahana. It's all like this, and I grown up with looking at those images. So similarly I am playing with, and there's a glimpse of Bhuta images, Mekikatte, which is Nandikeshwar or Nandikona. So that thing also, so as I told you, it's an amalgamation of different imageries and iconographies and folk and classical, everything together. And very interesting part of this particular work is here. It's like very Indian, and slowly when you go there, it's like very Greek. The shepherd kind of image. And again, like when you see visually, which is like animal carrying a man and man carrying an animal.
So it keeps on shape shifting, the composition itself.
And here the kind of, I'm talking about the history again, like missing pieces. And this is the imagination of historian, where with the pieces of available pieces. So it's a kind of suggestion like these are the available pieces from the exhibition and
Yeah.
the created by this is the fiction which is created.
Right. And it is, the fiction is also in the assemblage. In putting together something that would be Greek, something vernacular, contemporary, ceramics, and all of these eras, different time periods, different influences coming from your roots in Modavidre and then going right up to a Greek myth. Going from Bhuta deity of vernacular art form.
So I always, in my titles I use always like to use via. Everything is via, going via somewhere.
Yeah, going multiple different directions, going through this and that, and taking whatever is required. And also, I love the fact that at the top it's an empty space. Again,
very interesting part, I'm trying to do something and keeping in front of people, and how they're looking at it is very interesting. Like some people see it as a broken part. Some people is narrating this as a sacrifice, the God sacrificed all this, because that's how I keep in front of people, and it's their idea, imagination acts on it.
It could be their memories, their childhood, what they might have seen somewhere. They could all add and create their own works of art. So art to inspire, for us to imagine, whimsical. It's also whimsical, I think, as many of your works are. It has a sense of humor. It can be.
So this is humor is the very basic part of my work. It's always there.
Right.
So sometimes it's like I say, humor plays as a mud, the mud in a silent water, like mud when it sits, the layer of mud sits. That kind of humor I play,
Yeah. And I think that humor is especially evident in this sculpture, where
again, particularly this work, when I started this work, the first thing was in my mind is I want to play with the gravitation. This whole sculpture is going like this, not straight.
It is not going.
It's going like this, and I started to build this, and with the composition I placed this image here in between. And while the whole line was going like this, and I cut that line with this image. So this is again it's all how it comes, because of the study of images. Because of my interest in study of these classical images. So somewhere it's not a laborious for me. It's playfully I bring these images.
So it could be any number of things. It could be coming, again, this is very reminiscent of a Greek of an abduction.
Always there is in all cultures, in all civilization, all cultures, there is an idea of male and female together. King and queen, god and goddesses. That kind of.
So the goddess could be seated on the lap of a deity, how we have Shiva and Parvati or Lakshmi.
And always there is an idea of size. The one thing is when you politically, if you say they have shown goddess as a small and power. At the same time, if you ask me as an artist, I said always it's better to make that composition better. I place another smaller, where I can bring the element of softness or a kind of delicacy into it. So size also matters there.
It's both feminine and masculine. There's a diagonal and there's a horizontal. And the scale of the figures, again, it keeps shifting and there is an animal. So I think this is bringing together all of the things that you have been talking about in the way it is formed, and again reminding us of myths. So it could be an Indic myth talking about the gods and goddesses, or it could be Greek coming from those kind of mythologies.
At the same time, in each work, I wanted to try using multiple layers of what you call references. And not only from my own references and the viewers' references.
Yeah.
My whole idea is to, when viewers looking at my work, they have to open their
Minds.
open their folder of imagery
Right.
from their own mind. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think imaging, when talking about this, is again such a.
Again, this is like this particular work and this,
Yeah.
which is simultaneously going together. Like I worked on this almost similar time. And here, which I have this particular work, I started with the idea of Tanjore and Mysore miniature images.
Yeah.
You know, like the gold and something is missing. Like, so always when I start some work, start with some idea and it takes me to somewhere else. It always happens.
Right.
You know, even here. So initially my whole idea is to get that feel of old wall and wall paintings and kind of frescoes and somewhere it's again it's layers of images.
Yeah.
You know, somewhere I painted and removed it, again repainted, and it's a kind of talking about time and space, like somewhere like imitating time.
Yeah.
Because when we see wall sculpture or wall painting in a museum, we are looking at it with the time.
Yes.
Because it's maybe this painted in certain civilization, also a certain era with certain artists. But now we are looking at with the work of nature on it.
Yes.
Time on it.
Yeah. So time and nature acting on space.
Acting on space together.
Yeah. So I think that is why it has these amazing a kind of renaissance where
so here also like when we talk about the imagery or iconography, so when you come here, it's like very South Indian image with the ilkal sari and all this kind of thing. And here suddenly it's like very Western. Western.
Yeah.
And this is Western. Suddenly this is a kind of East and West meets kind of like this is West and this is East.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. There is a monster. There is a figure in a Western garb, and then there is some
again very Buddhist kind of imagery.
There's some tile work which is reminiscent of.
So I'm taking you so many places and living in an era elsewhere.
Right.
That is the good word.
Places and people.
Yeah. You're taking you to all periods.
Right.
And living at era elsewhere.
Right.
Living in an era elsewhere. There is no, I mean, it's like fictional era.
Fictional era which it is neither
not
this
exist at all.
or that. Like I think you said that neti, not this.
Yeah.
So it is not
because it acts in my work. Right. Like always you negate something. You know, because there is one drawing. The title is like notion, negate, negotiate, then narrate.
Right.
So it's always place. You know, because you working with kind of practice and muscle memory and notion, then you negate it because it came from like previously, you are not doing it. So then there's a negotiation with it. Then you narrate it.
That sounds like a very good insight into how your mind works when you're creating these works. So maybe that is why there is this negation of space. There are blank spaces.
And always like as an artist, what I do, the whole idea of when it gets complete or it takes a form, there only I break it because that makes it interesting, that breaking part.
Yeah.
You know?
Like you said, negating it and then negotiating.
Yeah, because my whole idea is to build a kind of narration to engage with it for a viewer, you know?
Yeah. And even in this, I thought the forms were, there is a hint of a form. It's not quite there. So it teases your imagination. It is whimsical. So I think this would be something that is reminiscent of a Gandharan,
Avalokiteshvara.
And the tiles are reminiscent of maybe Far Eastern.
Yeah, it's again like there is a, for each reference of tiles, there is a multiple references, you know. There is a came from Persia.
Yeah.
Then it's to Victorian tiles, also it has an influence. The layers of influences. Yeah. And when we talk about the images, when we talk about the images, very interesting part in this particular work is that sitting man here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring this painting into the current time.
Yeah.
So I painted this image. Like, you are going all like histories and coming back to
This image.
current time.
Yeah.
Which
Because
is
the
how
sandal-
he is wearing a sandal and pressing finger. You know, this is what happened. Like while I was standing and painting on this, my feet were paining,
Right.
and I was doing like literally I was doing like this, and I painted this on that.
Okay. So you are a part of
Yeah.
this.
So my feet and the fingers are there.
Yeah. So it is contemporary in some sense
Yeah.
of the word, and I think which is something that you are always, engaging with you. So it is a melding, like you said.
So
of
it's
contemporary
one
and-
more thing I always interested in the scripture. Like when we do start puja,
Right.
how they talking about the Bharattakande, Bharatadvipe, all that, how they come into,
Bharatavarshe.
Bharatavarshe, Bharattakande,
Yeah.
Jambudvipe,
Jambudvipe.
then
I mean the reference.
so
doesn't
Godavari
come-
Tire. So it's like bringing a camera from the broader to a kind of pointing out current time, like
Yeah.
where you are now.
Yeah.
You know,
We are going.
I am
far.
always interested in that part. Yeah. So similarly, that works in my painting also.
Yeah.
So you are going all over the places and coming here.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So pulling out,
Yeah.
looking at a multiple range of things, influences, ideas, inferences, and then zooming into something small
Yeah.
and contemporary.
Yeah.
And
Rich now.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now being here,
Yeah.
yet also not being here,
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Elsewhere. Because again, it talks about Maya. You know.
Yeah.
So everything is like imaginary. There is no
Yeah.
reality.
I think this.
Yeah, this
when
is-
you talk about Maya, this.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it was created and then.
Yeah. Again, I was talking about this title,
Yeah.
which is narrate, negate, negotiate, and
Negate.
yeah,
narrate.
no, the notion,
Yeah.
notion, negate, negotiate, and narrate.
Last.
So it's always that place there.
Yeah.
You know, you try to do something and negate it.
Right.
And for viewers also want to try to form a story in it, like somewhere like again, there's a breakage, you know, it's
Yeah.
taking you somewhere else.
Yeah. So going elsewhere,
Yeah.
going out, and
Yeah.
then coming
In,
back
yeah.
in, looking at a detail, letting your imagination fill
Yeah.
in. I
Yes.
think in this space also, there's so much space left, empty.
Yeah, it's
space.
empty. And always, like if you see my previous work, which is like I'm playing with the empty space. Empty space as an element. And my previous work, the idea of the space,
Yeah.
which is came from artist Barber. It was like very old show which I created for like in conversation with Barber.
Right.
So I'm very fascinated about like how he played with the space, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think space is the star of these
Yeah.
particular sets of paintings,
Yeah.
where you look at the space, then you look at the form, and then you go in to look at the details, you zoom in, and then you again pull
So
out.
the whole idea is like even in so small work,
Yeah,
you travel with the space, you know that.
yeah. You travel
Yeah.
to the edges and then come back
Yeah,
to
come
the.
back, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a continuation.
Yeah, continuation of the same series of drawings.
Yeah. So how do you, in these kind of works, do you start with a drawing and
So all works are like start with certain kind of marks,
Right.
and here it's a start with certain kind of patch. You know, it
Yeah.
gives a sense of placement.
Right.
Then it's as similar as like in physical world.
Right.
We first kind of mark a land and go there and build a building. That kind of.
Yeah, it's geographical in some sense of you creating that space. You go in, you create a space, you build on it.
And playing with the space. Because first you mark a space and playing with that.
Even the drawing is, there is some memory or a residue of what.
And again, I always interested in a kind of like what makes a story. Particularly this particular work, there is an image underneath the house kind of structure. It's very easy to enter into it and create a story. So similarly, other drawings are not giving you that entry point, but here it's easy. So that's why I kept this. Like how both are very different.
So there is a clear entry point.
Yeah, it's a very clear entry point because it's whatever it's part of is like it gives you exact picture. Like there's one bird kind of human and here, so it's a very easy to narrate a story.
So this is like a
spoon feeding.
Right. And there are also works in which you have left it more opaque. It is not so easily understood. Like this is I think a small.
It's a small in scale, and similar work which is there is a big work which is the ant-hill kind of thing. And I always interested in the idea of ant-hill. Like even in our stories, like who pray for so many years and become ant-hill and all these kind of like it takes you to the kind of story, So similarly, when we take example of this, like it's a nature's act to vanish everything. So the idea of like vanishing is non-permanence, and because the best part is like in Puri Jagannath. So every 25 years, he dies and the new image comes. That is the great example of like whatever comes into world, it has to go.
Cyclical nature of time. Also, this is again the same thing, the play of time on an object or an icon or exactly what you're talking about, where it can appear and then undergo some form of decay.
And again, in this particular work, the title is agreed upon. Agreed upon, the idea of agreement, at the same time, greed. Physical and mental. So here I played with the grid, the idea of grid, and because when I see, especially Persian miniature or Indian miniature, it's placed in a grid. Grid. Because here somewhere like a kind of navigation makes like very geometrical and straight lines at the same time very soft lines. And so here it looks like physically peeping images from somewhere. At the same time, it gives a suggestion of perspective, the layered. Similarly here also I work with the same idea of like grid.
Again, very Mughal Persian.
At the same time, there is a continuation of this text. This is image in grid and text in grid.
So, when we think about manuscripts, about even in Persian miniatures, there are these very precise.
Very precisely like very cut element like.
Very precise, calculated. It seems very geometrical in its precision.
Exactly.
And yet, it's very lyrical, soft, and very beautiful.
Even if you see like image wise also, the treatment of image, somewhere like very detailed and somewhere like patches.
There are patches of empty
space. It takes you to like closer, and it's like a kind of camera zooming in and zooming out.
Zooming out. For instance, this is very. This one is also a very detailed.
Especially here, if you come closer. So even for a viewers also, somewhere it attracts very closer, and somewhere you have to see it in distance.
So it draws us in when we look at something, and we need to look closer and then step away to get a larger idea of what it might be. Again, allowing us to engage, to look at it, interpret it, be imaginative, and giving us access.
So similarly, this is also from the same time. So worked on great.
Yeah. And
The best part is like when you paint, always leaving a mark of yourness in it. Like because while I painted, if you focus there, I painted this.
Oh, you have painted
Yeah,
yourself.
my own finger.
As an artist painting himself into the portrait. Yeah. That makes so much. I mean, yes, I can see how that would work. It gives it an intimate feeling that you are a part of it,
and because this when I paint this small thing, it's like very a kind of a personal connection with the images. It's very closer. It's a very meditative.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Like even this has those very beautifully etched details, which
especially here.
Yeah. They're very delicate in their sensibilities, even the colors. It has this pastel, yet it's luminous. It has these touches of, gilded strips.
Yeah.
So it's very layered and nuanced, and it again encourages you to look more closely.
Yeah. A part of same series.
Yeah.
Which is ant-hill. We've already spoken about this.
Yeah, the idea of time, decay, iconography, all of that. And again, I think composite creatures, like how we have in Indian mythology.
This is another sculpture which is like listener, and in Sanskrit Shravaka.
Yeah.
So here I played with the idea of like imaginary space and space. Like when we look at it, he is listening to something.
Yeah.
But imaginarily what is there, that has also become object. What he is imagining, that you are imagining again.
Yeah.
So again the idea of silence and the whole idea of this is, if you look at his eyes, he is very curious to know something,
Yeah. It looks as if he's in suspense.
Yeah.
As if he's frozen in kind of what is going on. It's suspenseful and it is curious and the eyes seem to draw you in.
Yeah.
And what about the physiognomy of these when you...
So again, like there are so many references. First thing is when I started working on this, the first idea is like a kind of Vyasa Muni, that kind of form I wanted.
Okay.
No Buddhist or very kind of scholarly kind of thing also wanted. Like even when you say this, it's like very Buddhist and Japanese kind of hairdo.
Okay.
So again, like in each work, it has to take you to so many.
And where do you decide these?
And again, like this is breaks.
Yeah.
It gives a suggestion of old, timeless, and time.
Right. Decay and time, erasure, erosion.
Exactly.
Archaeology.
Yeah. The question is like could be like it was missing and it's recreated. That kind of suggestion it comes there.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah. And the iconography of this figure also very thoroughly enjoyed like the delicate hands.
Yeah. In the posture of
listening.
What about the musculature?
It's a very feminine at the same time, like a kind of a very soft movement, kind of, bhangi.
Yeah. I think it also draws from Jain and
Buddhist. It's a very Jain kind of. And even this the whole surface and things like it takes me to Jain. And because I have that kind of, because I studied in my Mudubidri, which is a Jain Kashi, and I'm surrounded by all these Jain figures.
Yeah.
And it always reflects in my all work.
Yes. I think many of these Jain sculpted forms are also using black.
Black stone.
Black stones where they are they can be monumental, but they can also be small.
And especially this sitting posture, which is like very Mahavir and this kind of.
Yes, the seated.
And one more thing, somewhere like I want to mention that choti which I make.
Yeah.
This is came from in these 24 Tirthakaras, one Tirthakara is female.
Okay.
So her name is forgot. Not Nemina. This is what happened. Like, suddenly I forgot that.
Yeah.
And I remember that image because it has a choti, that figure. Yeah. There's one. Something. Yeah, I also forgot.
I have heard of this.
Because when I started to explain, that was in my mind.
Right.
Suddenly, like, it's not coming out now.
But I think that is also how your images are. They
Yeah.
remind you of something.
Yeah, something.
But you can't place it clearly
Yeah.
because it is at the back of your head and it is a part of what you have created. Something that is.
And this particular work is a kind of drawing, and this especially, like, I started this work as a like monologue with the nonce and Manakul.
Okay.
But I didn't kept that title eventually because this is layers of images I played with, and where you can see the drawing with the brush here, and which is not able to see in other painting there, which is everything is covered. Otherwise, there is a very basic idea of like how I distribute image in painting.
So this is a kind of tribute to the Parody masters.
Yeah. At the same time, B.N. Goswami, who wrote about them.
Yes, who brought them to life, and I think he was instrumental in creating this scholarly attention on this.
And I always like in here I want to somehow kind of give him a homage from my side because he is the one who taught us about Indian painters.
Yes, and instead of talking about Indian miniature traditions, Pahadi paintings as anonymous, where you don't know the artist, he actually created.
And always before him, the whole thing they were, we didn't know about miniature as an art. It was like more kind of craft kind of thing.
But he, I think, brought them to center stage.
And the question of like why they are not contemporary or why it's not Indian art.
And I think we now think about nonce as one of great masters, equal to some of the.
So I was talking about it now. I recall it Manjunath.
Manjunath.
Yeah, Manjunath is a female.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is your homage
to Manapu and nonce, and especially Goswami.
Yes.